Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Welcome to 11th session of Grow Through Gita thematic study. So, as you know, after finishing our sequential study of Bhagavad Gita, we have started something very interesting. It's a thematic study of Bhagavad Gita. We pick and choose different themes, interesting themes from Bhagavad Gita. We talked about the 5 subject matters discussed in Gita: Ishvara, Jiva, Kala, Karma, Prakriti. We talked about 4 different levels of happiness. We talked about so many different things actually. So today we are going to talk about yet another very interesting topic, that's about ego. So ego is a word which we use quite often in English, and usually it has a negative connotation. When we say, oh, this person has a lot of ego, we mean it in a negative way, like they have a lot of attitude, they're too proud, they're too arrogant. So usually when we use the word ego in the common use of English language, it has this negative baggage that it carries. Well, is ego totally bad? Is there some good aspects to it also? So let's find out a lot more. That's why today's topic is called Unmasking the Ego. Now, everybody in the world is about keep your mask up. And here in this session, we are saying take out your mask. Of course, keep the physical mask, but take out your mask of ego that we are wearing. So we'll learn more about this as we keep rolling today. But before that, as always, first things first, and that is let's offer our prayers, invocation prayers at the lotus feet of the Lord and great acharyas, seeking humbly their blessing so that through their mercy we can understand a little bit about the wonderful teachings presented by Krishna to Arjuna in Srimad Bhagavad Gita. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to switch my screen, and meanwhile, all the lovely devotees here, Vrinda Sharma ji was waiting forever. Thank you so much. You were so eager. Appreciate that. Kani Bob, I think this is Kanishk maybe. So Hare Krishna. Pallavi Mataji, Hare Krishna to you too. Banu Mataji, Satyamurthy sir, Hare Krishna. Vinod is here. Raseshwari Mataji is here. Saraswati Mataji is here. Please accept my humble obeisances too. Jai Srila Prabhupada. So let's go ahead and get started. And if you haven't already said Hare Krishna, please do so. It's always nice to see who is here. Okay, so I hope you can see my screen. Kindly repeat the prayers after me. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratvishe Namaha. Namo Brahmanya Devaya Go Brahmana Hitaya Cha Jagadditaya Krishnaya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarobhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So let us offer our humble obeisances and express our deep heartfelt gratitude by dedicating today's session on Unmasking the Ego to His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, the founder Acharya of International Society for Krishna Consciousness, my most beloved spiritual master, eternal source of inspiration, among so many other things. So welcome everyone. Today's topic is quite an interesting one and timely and relevant one, which is called Unmasking the Ego. So before I share what I shared, now ego is a term that we regularly use. What according to you is ego? What is your understanding of the term ego? Let's find out. Could you please put it in the chat section? What according to you is ego? So Hare Krishna to Shruti Mataji, my brother Antaratma Krishna Prabhu, Shilpa Gowda, Saraswati Mataji, Mohan Raj Bhavya Mataji, Namita Mataji. Welcome everyone. Very excited and delighted to have all of you. So what according to you is ego? There's no wrong answer. So whatever you feel like, you're welcome to put it in the chat section. I'll maybe read a few out and then we will discuss more. Gopi Rangan sir, Hare Krishna to you too. Welcome to the session. So what according to you is ego? Okay, Pallavi ji is saying it's a feeling of superiority, feeling superior. Saraswati ji is saying it's a feeling of pride. Okay, I like the choice of terms, superior, pride. Gopi ji is saying, in my humble opinion, is exalting godlessly oneself. Okay. Okay, it's a atheistic kind of boasting about oneself. Okay. Any other answers? What according to you is ego? Satyamurti sir is giving the Sanskrit equivalent of it, saying ahamkara. Okay. Banuji is saying ego is self-pride that will not allow us to grow. Okay, nice. Saraswati Mataji has one more. She's saying it's a puffed up attitude. Okay. It's also called the uptight attitude, puffed up attitude. Yeah. Very commonly used phrases. Pallaviji is saying feeling that you are not answerable to anyone. All right. Okay. Any other answers? Meghana is saying our me or I personality which is in contact with the outer world. Quite technical, but I like it. Bhavya ji is saying identifying with body is false ego and understanding as part of Lord Sri Krishna is true ego. Okay, you're already one step ahead, but my question was just what is ego? Shailaja Mataji is saying ego is false identification. False identification. Is ego false identification? So a little mix up there, Shailaja Mataji. Raseshwari Mataji is saying real ego is that I am a soul and false ego is that I am this body. All right, very good. Good answers. If you think of some more, you can keep putting them in the chat section and sharing your thoughts. Meanwhile, let's go back, and some of you are already on the right track, giving me some really good answers there and a step ahead. In fact, we will cover all that and maybe some more. So please stick around and hopefully you will find some nuggets of wisdom that might be of use to you. So before we unmask the ego, first of all, let us understand what is ego. Is ego itself bad? Not really. So what is ego? Ego is identity. Simply put in one word, it is identity. That's it. It is the sense of I-ness. Who is that I? The identity. What do we identify with? That's ego. Now, ego by itself is not really bad by nature because everybody has a sense of identity. It's not like we are identity-less. We do have some identity. So, ego means identity, and there's nothing bad about having an identity. But here is where we get into trouble. Ego is of two types, broadly speaking. There is the false ego, which becomes false identity. And there is the real ego, which is the real identity. So the real identity, like Raseshwari Mataji was pointing out, is that I am a spirit soul. Now, how do I know that I am a spirit soul? We'll get into that in just a minute. We get to that conclusion through the understanding of the Shastras and also through systematic, logical analysis of, intuitive analysis, logical analysis. There's near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences, and there is also our own consciousness that we can feel. So based on so many different levels, we come to the conclusion that yes, I am the soul. I'm not going to go deep into that conversation because we've already discussed the topic earlier in Grow Through Gita thematic study, the very first session actually, which is called Jiva, the individual soul. So real ego means real identity, and that real identity is to become aware with complete conviction that I am a spirit soul. And not only am I a spirit soul, but I'm also part and parcel of this supreme soul. That is also my identity. Just like a nut or a bolt, to know that I'm a small nut or a bolt is actually, yes, it's identity, but also to understand that I'm part of this huge machine. I keep these two metal plates together and help them bang against each other and manufacture some parts. That also is part of identity of that nut and bolt. So I am a spirit soul. Number two, I am part and parcel of the supreme soul. And number three, what is my relationship? How am I related to this supreme soul? Actually, I am the servant of this supreme master, the supreme lord. So three things we discussed under real ego. First of all, I am a spirit soul. Second of all, not only I am a spirit soul, I'm not like some, just all by myself, but I'm also part and parcel of this huge supreme soul. The way I am connected with this supreme soul is that I am a servant and he is the master. And now, what is the false ego then? False ego, simply put, is false identity, to falsely identify myself as the body. And not just this body, the gross body, but also the subtle body. I am my thought process. I am my ideas. And also to think that I am, the gender, whether I'm a male or a female. I am about the religion that I follow. I'm a Hindu, I'm a Muslim, I'm a Christian, I'm a Jew, I'm a Buddhist. Or based on which place, which country my body has taken birth in, nationality. I'm an Indian, I'm an American, Australian, European, Chinese, Russian, African. So based on the nation, based on the gender, based on, religion one follows, that the faith that they follow, and based on so many other isms. And based on the different hats that we wear, I'm a wife, I'm a daughter, I'm a sister, I'm an engineer, I'm a community member of some part of community, or whether it is the political affiliation that you have, whether you are an employee, whether you are a manager, whether you are a business owner, whether you are an entrepreneur, you're a scientist, you're an astronaut. All the different identifications that we go by. So this is all false ego because these are all related to the bodily conception of life. In Sanskrit, this is put as Dehatma Buddhi. To think that I am the body, and not just I am the body, and now there is also this extended identity related to that body. Related to I just gave you a brief description, and then there is also mine. The moment I say I, then it becomes mine. My country, my family, my children, my spouse, my parents, my relatives, my friends, my neighbors, my locality, my country. Everything mine, 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 mine. So this I, me, mine, this is false ego when it is based on the bodily platform. So ego by itself is nothing wrong, but false ego, everything is wrong with it. Real ego, it's good. False ego, it's bad. So in today's session, let's get it straight right up front. When we say unmasking the ego, what we are actually referring to is unmasking the false ego. We can't get rid of our identity completely. That is called voidism, shunyavada. And that has its own flaws. You cannot be without identity because you are somebody. You do have an identity. So to completely say, I will remove that I-ness, I will strip myself of all the identities, there's no point in that. You can't. So what we want to unmask is the false ego layers that we have. And what we do want to embrace is the real ego, the real identity. So I hope that much is very clear. The real ego, the false ego. False ego, not good. Real ego, very good. And now, based on these two different types of ego, let's talk a little bit about consciousness. Like ISKCON, it stands for what? International Society for Krishna Consciousness. To be conscious of Krishna. So Prabhupada sometimes jokingly used to say, even before you become Krishna conscious, first become conscious. So what does he mean when he says become conscious? Because many times mindlessly we are just like that going through life. We are not really conscious of most of the things really. We are just going through the drill mechanically, just because so many others are doing it, it's like a checklist we are going through, tick, 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 tick. So, but that's not how we live. So first we should become conscious. So what is this consciousness? Now consciousness is a symptom of the presence of the soul in the body. In fact, this consciousness is the differentiating factor between a living body and a dead body. If you go to a person and just give them a hot tight slap, they will be like aghast and they will like slap you back, or they will scold you, or they will at least say ouch in pain or something, some reaction. Why? Because they're conscious of the pain. So as long as the soul is living in the body, we are conscious of the pain and pleasures. But the dead body, forget about giving a slap. Even if you were to take an axe and chop off their entire arm, the dead body is not going to protest. Why? Because the dead body is not conscious. Whether it's pain, whether it's pleasure, they're completely unconscious. Why? Because the soul has left that body. So the consciousness is a symptom of the presence of the soul, just like a bulb. So I have a bulb here in the room, right on top of the place where I'm sitting on the wall. If we imagine the bulb to be like a soul, but the light that is emanating from the bulb is pervading through the entire study area here. So similarly, the soul which resides in the heart region, it spreads its consciousness throughout my body, every single atom, to the tip of my finger, to the tip of my toe, to the top of my head, entire body. While that is consciousness, now we should also understand there is spiritual consciousness and there is the contaminated material consciousness. So spirit by nature, the spiritual consciousness is pure, is completely pure. But when the soul unfortunately comes down from the spiritual world to the material world, the moment it comes in touch with the three gunas, the three modes of material nature, sattva guna, rajo guna and tamo guna, the consciousness gets polluted. It becomes impure. So this is where the material consciousness comes into play. So there is spiritual pure consciousness and there is the contaminated impure material consciousness which is influenced by the three different modes. Now, when we as spiritual seekers are performing bhakti, are taking up to spirituality, our goal is to move our consciousness from this contaminated material consciousness to back to the pure spiritual consciousness. So as long as we are deeply rooted in the identity of false ego, false identities, I am a woman, I am an Indian, I am an engineer, I am an entrepreneur, I am this, I am that, so many things, everything related to the body. I want to control, I want to enjoy, I want to possess, I am the owner, I am right and everybody is wrong, I have to defend myself. So this kind of consciousness is material consciousness. The thicker the false ego is, the more to the extreme of material consciousness we are, and the more we move towards real ego, away from false ego, the more and more we become spiritually conscious. So I hope this much is clear. So the spectrum of consciousness, on one end is the utterly deep material consciousness. On the opposite end of it, 180 degrees, is the deep and pure spiritual consciousness. So somewhere on this spectrum, we are there. We have to identify now, where are we? Are we closer to spiritual consciousness or are we closer to the material consciousness? Our goal is to move from the material towards the spiritual. And for that, we have to we have to dissolve our false ego as much as possible, and we have to get reinstated in our true identity, that is the real ego. So in Bhagavad Gita, chapter number 7, shloka number 4, this beautiful shloka Krishna covers. Let us try and chant the entire verse. Bhumihi Apaha Analaha Vayuhu Kam Mana Buddhir Eva Cha Ahankara Idiyam Me Binna Prakritir Ashtada. Let's do one line at a time now. Bhumirapo nalo vayuhu kammano buddhirevacha ahankara iti yamme binna prakritirashtada. Let's do two lines now. Bhumirapo nalo vayuhu kammano buddhirevacha ahankara iti yamme binna prakritirashtada. Complete shloka, fourth shloka, chapter 4. Bhumirapo nalo vayuhu kammano buddhirevacha ahankara iti yamme binna prakritirashtada. So in this particular shloka, Krishna is telling Arjuna, Binna Prakritirashtada. Prakriti means matter, material energy. And Krishna is saying Ashtada. He is talking about 8 material energies of his, Krishna's energies. Binna. Krishna is saying these are 8 separated material energies of his. What are they? Bhumi, earth. Apaha, water. Analaha, fire. Vayuhu, air. Kam, ether. So these 5 up until now, earth, water, fire, air and ether, these are gross material energies. Gross because we can see it, we can touch it, we can feel it. And then there are 3 more Mana, mind, buddhi, intelligence, and ahankara, which is the false ego. So mind, intelligence, and false ego, these three are the subtle material energies of Krishna. So of the subtle energies, mind, intelligence, and false ego, ahankara is our subject of interest today. So ahankara, false ego, is the subtlest of the subtle body. So as it is subtle body, hard to recognize. Gross, yeah, it's very much evident. But ahankara is the subtlest of the subtle body. So false ego is very, very difficult to really pinpoint, to discover, to point our finger and say, hey, here is false ego which is acting. So because of its subtle nature, false ego is very difficult to identify, and that's exactly why years together, decades together, we could be chanting, we could be studying Shastra, we could be rendering devotional service, but not really making that much progress as much as we would like to. Why? Because we are not really consciously working on dissolving this false ego. So we should clearly identify and understand here that at the time of death, it is only the gross body that anyway gets dissolved. Dissolved in the sense it's left here. It doesn't go to the next life. But the subtle body made up of mind, intelligence, false ego, it goes from one life to another life. In fact, it is the subtle body that carries the soul from dead body, that is from this life to the next life, next body. Just like the air that carries the aroma of a flower from one place to another place, it is the subtle body that carries the soul from one body to another body. So in order to get rid of the gross body, you don't have to do anything, because at the time of the death, automatically it will get destroyed. It's left behind. But what we have to consciously work on is how to dissolve the subtle body. In that also, how to dissolve the false ego. So unless and until we dissolve the false ego completely, we cannot attain liberation. We cannot leave this material world. As long as even slight attachment is there, anything related to this matter, that is material, this body, then we have to stay back in the material world. So it is in our own interest to learn about this false ego and also understand how does it really work, how does it manifest, how do I identify where it is the false ego that is, popping its head up, and also learning how to dissolve my false ego. If we are not really aware of these things, then like I said, we can go on and on and on and on and keep doing what we are doing, but we may not really achieve the progress at the pace that we want. So interestingly, while Krishna in 7.4 is talking about false ego, ahankara, as his material separated energy, in the very next verse, 7.5, अपरेयम् इतस्त्वन्याम् प्रकृतिम् विद्धि मे पराम् जीवभूताम् महाबाहो येदम् धार्यते जगत्. So the translation is, besides these, that means besides the 8 elements that Krishna already talked about, O mighty armed Arjuna, there is another superior energy of mine. Interesting. So Krishna is saying what he now talked about was relatively inferior energy. Now he is saying there is a superior energy, which comprises the living entities who are exploiting the resources of this material inferior nature. So Krishna is, like they say in Hindi, dudh ka dudh, pani ka pani. He is giving a clear-cut understanding of how soul is also part of Krishna, but it is the superior energy of Krishna. False ego is also energy of Krishna, but it is material energy of Krishna. One is inferior and the other is superior. So we should clearly know these distinctions. So once what happened was, there is this story. Actually, this is a real incident, real story that happened. It was even carried in the newspapers and all that long time ago. So Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, who was the very first Prime Minister of free India, independent India, he was visiting several places. So he happened to visit one, mental asylum. So he went into this hospital where all these, mentally inflicted people, they were admitted. So he got a tour. It was quite a big hospital and they took him through various wards and different departments and so many kinds of patients. So he got a nice tour, and then as he was passing by one room, it was quite a big room actually, and there was a huge board hanging in front of the board which said no entry. And then Jawaharlal Nehru saw this and he said, no entry, but I am the Prime Minister of India. So I want to go and see this also. It seems like quite a big room. Well, the doctors dissuaded him from doing so. They said, sir, no, it's okay, please don't go there, that's fine. We'll just show you the rest of the hospital and then you can take leave. He insisted, he said, no, I want to see. And upon his insistence, and in fact the doctors warned him, saying that, the craziest of the patients are really kept in this ward. He said, in your own interest, it's not good that you go here. But Jawaharlal Nehru insisted. He's like, no, I'll be fine, please open the door and I would like to go. They said, all right, and then opened the door. And in this huge room, there were hardly any patients to see, but there was one person sitting in the back of the room. And Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, the Prime Minister that he is, with confidence, he started walking closer and closer towards this person. And as he was approaching closer, he saw that this patient, actually, he was very well dressed. He was dressed in like 3-piece suit, and his, gelled hair, nicely combed, very prim and proper, very presentable, decent guy from outside. So Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru was thinking, how come they've kept such a decent looking man here in this ward? What's wrong? Hope they didn't confuse, make some mistake or something. He was thinking thus, and then he just kept walking forward. And as he came right in front of this man extended his hand. He shook the hand of Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. And then he asked him, how are you? And this man said, fine, thank you. And Jawaharlal Nehru was quite taken aback. He said, not only he looks decent, he also is quite well spoken. He speaks, very well. And he thought definitely there must have been some mistake. And then when Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru asked him, who are you? And then this man, he, first of all, this person who was crazy, he asked Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, like, who are you? And he said, I am Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, the Prime Minister of India. By the way, who are you? And then this man who was kept in that asylum, he just whispered into the ears of, he said, shh, come closer. And then he whispered into his ears and said, don't say that loudly. Even I said the same thing and they brought me here. The moment he said that, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru just took a right about turn and then he just ran out of that room and he never went back. So what is the moral here? This man has not only identified himself, first of all, he's identified himself wrong. He's thinking that he is Pandit Nehru. He's thinking he's Prime Minister of India. So first of all, wrong identification. And number two, he's completely convinced about his wrong identification. That he is warning the actual Prime Minister, saying that don't say that, they'll also send you here. So like this, many people may be thinking, I am Napoleon, I am Hitler, I am, whatever. Complete misidentification. Now we may just get a good laugh out of this. But then what if I told you, you and I are also equally crazy, if not more? Why? Just like that person misidentified himself as the Prime Minister of India, Pandit Nehru, and trying his best to play that role and convince others that he is the Prime Minister. Similarly, we have also misidentified ourselves completely, that thinking that I am this body, I am a woman, I am an Indian, I am an engineer. Completely convinced about these misidentifications. And not only completely convinced about our wrong identifications, we are trying to play out all these roles in a way to convince others, look, who am I? I can control these things. I can own these things. I can call the shots. Look at the position I'm going to get into. Look at the wealth I'm going to make. Look at this. Look at that. Look at my accolades. Look at my degrees. Look at my achievements. Look at my family lineage. Look at my assets. Look at the house I live in. Look at the place I live in. Look at the vehicle I drive. Look at the clothes I wear. Look at my body. Look at me, look at me, look at me. This is all false ego. Very, very crazy situation. So just like that crazy person is never going to be peaceful as long as he thinks he is the Prime Minister, which he is not. So similarly, the jiva also, the individual soul also can never be peaceful as long as it has misidentified itself with all these false designations and trying its best to play out all this drama and live up to it. Because we are trying to be something which we are not. I am trying to play the roles at the bodily level, which is first of all not right, and second of all temporary. And third, I have moved away from my real identity. That man has totally forgotten who he actually is. So similarly, we have come so far away from the real ego to the false ego that we are just going crazy. We are already crazy. So first of all, we ourselves are so crazy, and in this material world, the whole world is geared towards boosting our false ego. You are special. You are unique. You are extraordinary. Look at you. Look at your talent. Look at your appearance. Look at your family. Look at your education. Look at your work accolades. Look at the wealth you have. Look at your assets. Look. You drive this, you become special. You have this, you become special. You wear something, you become special. You have a certain hairstyle, everybody is going to look at you. You wear this nice dress and walk into the room, you are going to be the head turner. Everybody is going to look at you. So false ego is all about, I am the center of attraction. I am special. I am unique. And what is fashion all about today? It's only to make you look unique. Tone jeans, coloring the hair blue and green and yellow and pink. Why? To get attention. That's all. Look at me. I am somebody special. So while the material world is geared towards pumping up and boosting the false ego, the spiritual culture is all about mitigating and dissolving the false ego. So that's exactly why in a very nice shloka in chapter 2, shloka number 69, one of my personal favorites, यानिशा सर्वभूतानां तस्यां जागृति संयमे यस्यां जागृति भूतानि सा निशा पश्यतो मुनेः. So here Krishna is saying what is night for all beings is the time of awakening for the self-control. And the time of awakening for all beings is actually night time for the introspective stage. So, my dear friends, we have to understand the difference between material culture, spiritual culture, materialistic people versus spiritualistic people. What is night for the materialist is the daytime for spiritualist. The time they sleep, the other category people will wake up. Spiritualists are interested in self-realization activities. For materialistic people, that is night for them. They are not interested in that. And whatever materialistic people are interested, spiritualists are not interested. So whether you take the dress, whether you take the choice of music, whether you take the food choices, anything and everything you take, one is night for the other and day for the another one. So they're completely at odds. So being a spiritualist, our goal is to dissolve the false ego. But we are in the material culture where it's all about boosting the false ego. Appreciation, you massage my ego, I massage your ego, you didn't appreciate me, I appreciated you, or why you did not, it's all about claps and appreciation, massaging each other's egos. So it's totally at odds. Okay, so I hope all this is making sense to some extent. Now, Krishna gives us two choices. Krishna never forces anything on anybody. He respects the free will. And he is saying, Arjuna, look, you can use your free will to do two different things. Choice is yours. So what are those two choices? Let's find out. So from chapter 18, shloka number 58, Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Machchittaha sarva durgani mat prasadat tarishyasi ata chet tvam ahankaran na Shroshyasi, Vinangshyasi. Let us try and do one line at a time. Machchitta sarva durgani matprasadat tarishyasi atachetvam ahankaran nashroshyasi vinangshyasi. Okay, let's try and do two lines, dear devotees. Machchitta sarva durgani matprasadat tarishyasi atachetvam ahankara nashroshyasi vinangshyasi. Anyway, we did the whole shloka. So Krishna is saying, choice number one, if you become conscious of me, that is, if you become Krishna conscious, you will pass over all the obstacles of conditioned life by my grace. So this is choice number one. If you do everything you do in order to please Krishna by becoming Krishna conscious, in your endeavor to execute your duties, to please Krishna, Krishna is telling he will give you his mercy to overcome all the obstacles. Point to be noted, even in trying to please Krishna, Krishna is not saying you will not have obstacles. He is saying you will have obstacles, but you will overcome them. And you're not going to overcome them simply because of your talent and skill and all that. Of course, that is there. But the main thing why you will overcome all those obstacles is by mercy of Krishna. By my grace, Krishna is saying. So while this is choice number one, what is the second choice? If, however, you do not work in such consciousness, but act through your false ego, not hearing me, you will be lost. Clear cut. So if we act out of our own false ego, all our false identities, wearing different hats, for my own achievement, for my own results, and to fulfill my own sense desires, or the extended sense desires of my family, community, nation. So Krishna is saying, if you act out of false ego, even then you will act, but then Krishna is saying you will be lost. Na shroshyasi vinamshisi. Without hearing me, then you will be destroyed. You will be lost. So now the choice is ours. Am I going to act out of false ego, or am I going to act out of wanting to please Krishna? So there are two motivating forces. One is to please Krishna. The other is to please and pamper and boost my own false ego. So which one are we going to opt for? We should be intelligent about it. Now the false ego manifestations, like I said, it is the subtlest part of the subtle body. So it is very difficult to identify this false ego. So the false ego manifests in the form of lamentation when we lose something, grieving for something, lamenting for the loss of something, because we are attached to it. So there was a man, his house was set on fire, and somehow they realized at the middle of the night that the house was set on fire, and they all ran out of the house, and this man started wailing. He started screaming, saying that, oh, such a nice house, and it's all going to be burnt down and turned into ashes, and all these things are going to happen. He was lamenting. Why? Because he was attached to the house. False ego. But when he was lamenting thus, his elder son came and he said, "Father, why are you crying? Why are you lamenting?" The father said, "Are you crazy? Don't you see the whole house is burning down? How could you be so calm and peaceful?" The son said, "Oh father, don't worry about it. Anyway, just last week we sold the house. And since we sold the house, now it is somebody else's property. So why are you lamenting?" Immediately when he heard this, now that attachment is no longer attachment. That attachment to the house is no longer there because somebody else has bought it. So this man, he stopped crying. He was very calm. And when he was so calm, just looking at the house burning down, his younger son came and said, "Father, what happened to you? What's wrong with you? The whole house is burning down. How could you be so calm and composed?" And the father said, "Why should I lament? Your elder brother anyway said that the house was sold just few days ago." And the younger son said, "Oh, my dear father, although the house was sold, the payment is still not done. So the whole process is still not completed." And the moment this happened, again the father, this elderly man, he started lamenting. So now you tell me, what is the actual cause of his lamentation? Is it the house burning down? If that was the case, he should have been lamenting throughout. But the lamentation came because of his attachment to the house. Initially, he was attached, so he was lamenting. And then when he got to know it was sold, then he was calm. That attachment wasn't there. And later again, when he said the process is not complete, the money is not been paid, and then again that attachment was there. So similarly, there is a beautiful pastime in Srimad Bhagavatam about Maharaja Chitraketu. So this Maharaja Chitraketu, he was not just a king, but he was an emperor. He was an emperor of the whole world. He had not 1, 2, 3, but he had 10 million queens. In other words, 1 crore queens. But in spite of having 1 crore queens, he did not have any children. And not for his own sense gratification, but because he wanted to have a heir to the throne. Somebody who can rule the kingdom nicely after his time. He tried various things, but he could not really have any children. And he was always lamenting. And then Angira Muni, who is a Trikala Jnani, who could foresee even the future, he comes, and although he knows why Chitraketu Maharaj is unhappy, out of just etiquette, he asks him, what is keeping you busy these days, and how are you, and all these things, how are you ruling the kingdom, and all those. And then Chitraketu Maharaj expresses his grief, how he is desperately wanting a child. And then Angira Muni says, I can make an arrangement for you to have a child. But let me forewarn you, this child, no doubt, will make you happy in the beginning, but also this child will become a source of great lamentation for you. Chitraketu Maharaj did not really understand the depth of Angira Muni's words. He thought lamentation means perhaps Angira Muni is just saying that because the child may be too naughty or things like that, So he said, no, that's okay. I can deal with it. Please make the arrangement for me to have a child. So then they did some sacrificial ceremonies, and then they got this sacrificial mercy in the form of food, and that was given to Kritadyuti, the very first wife of Chitraketu Maharaj. And when she was given, then she conceived, and then she gave birth to a very beautiful baby boy, and that baby boy was called Harshashoka. Harshashoka. So why Harshashoka? Initially, this baby boy caused so much of harsha, jubilation. The entire kingdom was so jubilant, especially Maharaja Chitraketu. And Kritadyuti became the apple of his eyes along with the child, because it was she who bore the child. But as it happens, all the other queens were envious of Kritadyuti, because she was getting all the attention from Chitraketu and they were not. So out of envy, what did they do? They poisoned this little baby. Very, very sad situation. And after this little baby, Harshashoka, passed away, Chitraketu, his lamentation knew no bounds. It was so deep. He was just drowning in the ocean of grief. And again, Angira Muni comes, and then he reveals through the same baby, they bring him, Narad Muni and Angira Muni, they bring this child back to life, and through that child, they give spiritual instructions to Chitraketu. And Chitraketu's that bodily attachment is cut off, detached. And then he stops lamenting. And then he gets on the spiritual path, and then after that he performs sadhana. And then as a result of that, he becomes the king of Vidyadharas. Vidyadhara is a certain community, highly elevated, like even above human beings. They have a whole planet called Vidyadhara planet. And while he was the king of Vidyadhara, he became a Vidyadhara, and then he was just traveling around, and then he sees Mother Parvati sitting on the lap of Lord Shiva, while Lord Shiva is giving a discourse. And without any malice in his heart, just in a joking way, this Chitraketu, who has become a Vidyadhara, he just jokes at this sight. But Mother Parvati takes offense towards it, and she curses Chitraketu that he becomes a demon. So can you imagine what a fall down from Vidyadhara to a demon? But this time, because he was not having false ego, he was more situated in the real ego, real identification. Chitraketu could have cursed Mother Parvati back, but he does not. He does not counter curse her. Instead, he very humbly accepts this curse of hers. And then he becomes a demon, Vritrasura. So what is the shift between Chitraketu before and Chitraketu after? So before, he was driven by false ego, that attachment for I, me, mine was there. But later, he was more situated on the real ego platform. And what a glorious character. He comes as Vritrasura, the demon, and he fights against Indra, and he knows he's going back home, back to Godhead. It's a beautiful pastime in itself. So, but anyway, here we can understand the switch between false ego and real ego. So when there is too much lamentation and too much jubilation, this is product of false ego. That false attachment is there at the bodily platform and the extended bodily platform. So body is my own, extended bodily is my people. So lamentation, jubilation, people who are not equipoised. They can't take sorrow and they can't take happy situations also. This is false ego. And then number 3, There is fear. There is fear of something inauspicious happening. So this is also a manifestation of false ego. When there is too much bodily attachment, there is also too much fear, because anything that is related to body is temporary. You're bound to lose it sooner or later. And because that attachment is there, the fear is also very strong. So this we can see displayed in Dhritarashtra, the blind acting king of Hastinapura, who was always in fear that he may lose the throne, he may lose the throne. And the throne did not even belong to him in the first place. But on the contrary, we see someone like Maharaja Parikshit. When he was cursed, he had no attachment to the kingdom, the entire empire actually. He immediately made his son Janamejaya as the king. He just renounced everything. He sacrificed everything. He just retired to the bank of the Ganges, and then he went back home, back to Godhead, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam from someone as exalted as Shukadeva Goswami for 7 days and nights continuously. So we see this time and again. Or whether in the case of Duryodhana, the 13 years that Pandavas were in exile, they slept peacefully, but Duryodhana could not. He was so afraid that any time Pandavas may come back, any time they may snatch away the kingdom from him. He was so afraid because he was situated in false ego, bodily attachment. But Pandavas are situated in real ego. They know we are servants of Krishna. Krishna will protect us at any cost, no matter what. Whether we are in forest, whether we are in palace, doesn't matter. So false ego also manifests as fear. Too much fear. And then it also manifests as anger. Why anger? Because of the frustration of material desire. This very nicely, I think a couple of weeks ago, we very nicely analyzed this in one of our thematic studies, the fall down sequence. In that, one of the step in fall down was anger also. So people who are false ego driven are very materially ambitious. They want to achieve so much, but it's all for them. But we also understood in a very, very logical way how in this material world, ultimately all of your desires are bound to be frustrated. And when they do get frustrated, it's going to cause anger. Why did this not happen? How come I didn't get it? How come somebody else got it? How come I didn't get it in spite of all this? How come I got this instead of that? How come I thought it was going to be perfect, but it's far from perfect? This is not what I wanted. And then even if you get what you wanted and it's just what you wanted and it's just perfect, then it's taken away from you. You lose it. And that leads to frustration also. So the more and more you get frustrated when your material desires are not fulfilled, that is also a sign of false ego. So these are all indications of how we can identify that, yeah, I am too false ego driven. And how else does false ego manifest? It also manifests especially in the families. It can be the breeding ground. It can be the battleground of false egos. Always that friction for subtle power games. Whose idea is better, or whose opinion was considered and whose wasn't, and who gets to call the shots, and who did this, who did that. So many times it's always back and forth, especially husband-wife relationship, but more so just the whole family also. It can be a battleground of fight between false egos. So as I said, while false ego manifests in so many different ways, how can we try and dissolve false ego? So false ego is displayed through pride also. Many of you rightly pointed out earlier, pride. And this pride comes from various things. Pride because of one's intelligence and knowledge or scholarship. Pride because of one's position. Pride because of one's wealth. Pride because of one's family lineage. Pride because of knowing somebody who is in a powerful position. Pride, pride, pride. And Krishna has a way how to smash that pride. Any pride, Krishna detests pride. The moment he notices even slightest amount of pride, Krishna will arrange the situation in a way to smash that pride. Just like we see Trinavarta, he represents pride because of scholarship, intelligence, knowledge. So how Krishna took him high, and then he falls down. So somebody who is scholarly, intelligent, they can also go high, and then Krishna will bring them down if they're proud. There's nothing wrong in being scholarly, but if somebody is proud because of scholarship, then Krishna will bring it down. And pride because of wealth, Nalakuvaira and Manigriva. How Krishna, Narad Muni cursed them, but it became a blessing. But they had to be naked trees in the courtyard of Nanda Maharaj, and then many years later, Krishna comes and liberates them. And pride because of one's power and position. Indra. And Indra does it so many times actually. And especially in Govardhan Leela, we see Indra was so intoxicated because of his position that he wanted to devastate, destroy the whole Vrindavan. And how Krishna smashed his pride by lifting Govardhan hill just like a mushroom, a 7-year-old boy, that too in left hand, that too pinky finger, that too tip of the pinky finger, for 7 days and nights. Oh, what a smashing of pride for Indra. So embarrassing. And the nature of pride is just like a termite. The termite, it actually takes birth from the wood, and then it eats up that same wood where it came from. Very interesting concept. It comes out of the wood, it takes birth from the wood, and then it eats up the wood itself. So similarly, this pride, the talent from which that pride is coming, or that opulence because of which the pride is coming, that same pride from what it is coming, it will smash that. It will become a cause of that destruction of that particular thing. So we should be very, very careful of pride. So the opposite of pride is humility. So taking a humble position, this is how we dissolve false ego. Always being humble. That is why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Shikshashtakam, he says, humility and tolerance. We should wear these like garlands around our neck while chanting japa. So humility, what is humility in Bhagavad Gita, one of the chapters, when describing the definition of humility? Amanitvam, adambitvam. Prabhupada says humility is no hankering for being honored. I'm paraphrasing it. I'm not giving the exact quote as given by Prabhupada. Prabhupada puts it much more beautifully. So humility means not having that hankering, that somebody should appreciate me, somebody should honor me. For this, I am special, I am extraordinary, I am unique, look at me, I am somebody great, I am somebody worth something because of my own talent and this and that. That is humility. When some people mistake, if I'm humble, does that mean I'm not confident? No, it's not contradictory. Confidence is coming from the fact that by Krishna's mercy, Krishna can empower me to do anything on his behalf for his pleasure. That is confidence. But pride is I can do because of my own skills and talents and whatever I have, my own resources. Now that's pride. But confidence is you have the you are confident about Krishna's ability to empower you to help you do anything for his satisfaction. Actually, very recently this got displayed in, I don't know if Raseshwari Mataji is already hearing it. Yeah, she is here. I see her messages. So she did such a wonderful job of celebrating Janmashtami, offering Chappan Bhog and all that, and everything was so tastefully done, so well organized. And I just messaged her and said that this is so nice. I mean, I was just really wonderstruck what a fantastic job she had done. And in reply to that, she very nicely, she said it is Krishna who is the ability in her, who has empowered her to do all this. So that's true humility, real humility. Her confidence, her belief is in the Krishna's empowerment, not in her own. Even in the ability that she has, she is saying that Krishna is the ability, which Krishna also says in one of the chapters, saying Paurusham Drushu. Any talent that you see, any ability you see in any man, that is Krishna. So she's not only understanding Bhagavad Gita, but living Bhagavad Gita. So now that's humility. Very nice display. Good job, Rateshwari Mataji. Very impressed. And then the second thing, how we can dissolve the false ego, is tolerance. By developing our tolerance muscle. So just earlier in the previous slide, we talked about how false ego is manifested through lamentation and jubilation. But here in dissolving false ego, we become tolerant of both. And Krishna also talks about tolerance extensively in Bhagavad Gita. He calls it titikshasva, sodom. This is all tolerance. And Krishna says in chapter 2, sukha, dukkha, both you should tolerate. He doesn't say tolerate only dukkha. He says tolerate both happiness and distress. Don't get elated in happiness and don't get distressed during sad times. Be equipoised. Be tolerant of both. And also becoming tolerant of others. Differences of opinion, which there are many. I know these are all like really idealistic. I mean, by speaking about all this, even I'm trying to inspire myself to actually try and incorporate some of these things sooner or later, sooner I hope. So tolerance, and number 3 is also forgiving. So this also helps false ego. So that way we focus more on our own faults and then don't magnify other people's faults. Again, receiving, what should I say, when it comes to forgiving, when we talked in 12th chapter about Shami, we talked in great detail about this. Seeking forgiveness and giving forgiveness, both. We should know how to do that. That helps us in dissolving false ego. When we are at fault, seeking forgiveness and not blindly covering up the fault all the time. That is again manifestation of false ego. Blaming someone else for their mistake, covering up their mistake, denying their mistake, minimizing their mistake. This is all manifestation of false ego. On the other hand, dissolving false ego, we admit our mistake and then we seek forgiveness for our mistake. And also giving forgiveness. So when somebody else, when we are at fault, we admit it and seek forgiveness. When somebody else is at fault, what about giving forgiveness? Now that's a whole another process also. So this is a big topic in itself. We have discussed this elaborately in one other session. And also number 4 is not defending. When somebody accuses, and which happens a lot of times, people are always accusing something or the other. Whether it's right, whether it's wrong, simply don't defend, let it go. So when somebody is bad mouthing or when somebody is whatever, so just stop defending. The more we defend ourselves, oh, but I did not do that. Oh, but I did not do this. Oh, but you're the one who did it. Oh, it's somebody else who did it. So this is all defending, and this is again, you are building a fort against your false ego. You're safeguarding your false ego and you're protecting your false ego, that I am somebody important and now I need to protect this importance of mine. I need to protect my reputation. Only when somebody else's life or reputation is in danger, yeah, then you can clarify, but don't do it in your own defense. If people say something, let them say. Krishna will prove it in time. In time, Krishna will prove it. But you don't have to go about doing that. So you can safeguard your energy. You don't have to waste your energy in defending yourself. Instead, you can use that to just dissolve your false ego and let it go. you know. So there are so many, again, this is a huge topic actually about false ego. So humility, tolerance, forgiving, not defending, and especially this false ego, the Dehatma Buddhi, to think that I am the body when I am not. This Asura, Dhenukasura, is represented by this Dehatma Buddhi. We talked about this during Balram Jayanti. So while many Asuras are killed by Krishna, Balaram kills Dhenukasura, Pralambasura. So Dhenukasura, that Asura, represents this Anartha, false ego, Dehatma Buddhi. So even Krishna doesn't really kill this Dehatma Buddhi, false ego. It is Guru who kills this false ego. And this basically comes out of ignorance. Why have I misidentified myself as the body? Because I'm ignorant. Once my Guru comes and with the torchlight of knowledge, he infuses my heart with realization of who I really am, then false ego is replaced by real ego. So we should very humbly, sincerely offer our prayers unto the lotus feet of our most glorious spiritual master Srila Prabhupada, so that may he kill this false ego just like Balarama killed Dhenukasura. So we have to try and dissolve this false ego. And we should not get caught up in this material culture which is all about boosting and pampering each other's egos, false egos. So just like Krishna in the very beginning tells Arjuna, basically the whole problem of Arjuna was also Dehatma Buddhi. Until then, it's not like Arjuna had not fought any wars, he had not killed anybody, he had killed so many, he's a Kshatriya. Then what was so new about this? The war of Kurukshetra. Why did he hesitate to fight? Dehatma Buddhi. He said, Swajana, these are my people. That is the problem. Bhishma is my grandfather, and Dronacharya is my teacher. These are my brothers. These are my brothers-in-law. These are my fathers-in-law. These are my people. Swajana. False ego. Extended selfishness. Extended bodily concept. He said that is the problem. These are my swajana. If it was somebody else, then I would have killed. But these are my people. That is the problem. And that is why the very first instruction Krishna gave Arjuna is said, first you will learn who you are. You're speaking like a pandita, but you're not really a pandita. Ashocyan, anvashochastvam, prajnavadamshcha bhashase, gatasun agatasunshcha nanushocanti panditaha. Nanushocanti panditaha. You're speaking like a learned man, but you are not really a learned man. Why? Because you're lamenting. Real Pandita will not lament. Because they know what is what. Why they will not lament? Because they understand that I am the spirit soul, others are also spirit souls. So Krishna in the very first shloka breaks the ignorance, removes the ignorance, points out the ignorance of Arjuna, and then very systematically replaces that ignorance with knowledge. That's why then he says, Dehinosmin yata dehe kaumaram yavanam jara tata dehantara praptir dhiras tatrana muhyati. So the soul, there's no death for the soul. It doesn't change. So this is what a guru does. So we should very humbly, sincerely pray unto Prabhupada. And just like Krishna told Arjuna, glorious are the warriors, Kshatriyas, for whom the opportunities to fight religious battles come unsought, because the doors of heaven are open for them. Similarly, glorious are the devotees, Vaishnavas, Krishna Bhaktas, for whom the opportunities to dissolve the false ego come unsought. Because for us, the doors of Goloka get opened when we dissolve our false ego. So my dear friends, Every single day, we are presented with so many opportunities to dissolve our false ego. Are we going to be proud? Are we going to be humble? Are we going to get agitated, lament, and jubilant? Or are we going to tolerate? Are we going to hold grudges? Or are we going to choose to forgive or seek forgiveness? And are we going to keep on defending? Or do we just let it go and stop defending ourselves and do our main business, that is just be concentrating on Krishna Bhakti? So every day there are so many opportunities for us. So instead of inflating our ego, false ego that is, let us always make, as much as possible, let's try to dissolve our false ego. And the more and more we dissolve our false ego, the day will come when the doors of Goloka are going to be open for us. And then we'll be truly situated in our real ego as servant of Krishna and Prabhupada. And then there's no more looking back. It'll be all Sachidananda, complete bliss. So on that note, I will stop speaking. It's 6:51 now. So if anybody has any questions, you can put it in the chat section. Maybe I can take a few. It may be questions, comments, feedback, additions, subtractions, anything you want. Please put it in the chat section. I would like to know, what did you think about the session? Meanwhile, let me see a few comments that have come. Again, this is a deep and vast subject. I have simply touched upon some highlight points, but there's so much to discuss here. This is just, we are barely scratching the surface. Sairamji, Hare Krishna. Vijay Rani Mataji is also here. Hare Krishna. Tirumalai sir, Hare Krishna. Sharada Mataji, Hari Bol. Bhavyaji is saying a person in Samadhi will also not experience any pain or pleasure. Let me just go out of this. That way I can just directly see the comments. Okay, a person in Samadhi will also not experience any pain or pleasure for body, but he has consciousness. Okay, those are exceptions, but he is already in an enlightened state. Pallavi Mataji is saying, ma'am, isn't the choice to be born itself makes us liable to the three gunas as we wanted to enjoy independently of Krishna? Yeah, actually, it's not like a desire to take birth. It's desire to enjoy, then the cycle of birth and death continues. Puneet, Hare Krishna to you. Puttagauri ji, Namaste, Hare Krishna. Welcome to the session. Chetan Prabhu, Hare Krishna. Bhavani, Hare Krishna. Raseshwari Mataji saying Krishna disappeared momentarily when the gopis became slightly proud of being associated with Krishna. He hates pride. Yes, there are quite a few instances like that. The moment pride comes, Krishna leaves. Similarly, in our heart also, to the extent that we are proud, to the extent that false ego is sitting on the throne in our heart, Krishna leaves our heart. Although he's there as Paramatma, but right now on that throne we have nicely made our false ego sit and we are nicely pampering him. So we have to kick out the false ego out of the throne, and then we have to allow Krishna to take the seat on the throne in our hearts. Sharada Mataji saying Trinadapi Sunichena. Yes, Mataji. Hari Bol. Raseshwari Mataji saying all glories to Srila Prabhupada and Krishna. Yes, indeed. Abel Sujan Prabhu, great lessons indeed, very much. Bhavyaji is saying thank you Mataji for this unique session. Hare Krishna, you're very welcome. Ashwin Prabhu, Hare Krishna, showing signs of dissolving false ego in front of materialistic people appears abnormal. We are sure to be shouted at or called crazy. They can call anything they want. We will not defend ourselves. But we are not here to please them. We are not really here to get called certain things from them and avoiding get called certain things. We are here to please Krishna. So when we dissolve our false ego, it doesn't matter what the karmis call us. What matters is Prabhupada is pleased, Krishna is pleased. So we really don't care for what other people, especially materialists, if they think whatever they call crazy, okay, so be it. They call us crazy and we think they are crazy. That's okay, no problem. But anyway, we know who is truly crazy, which is materialists are crazy. Saraswati Mataji saying, Mataji, which is the best way to introduce ourselves without reflecting any false ego? Okay, so you can still, this is a good question. So if somebody asks you like, who are you now? If you're introducing yourself, now you don't have to go around and say, I'm a spirit soul, I'm situated in real ego. You don't have to do that. You know, these upadhis, the titles we carry, it is just serving a functional purpose. You can state them as plain facts. You know, you can still say whoever you are, what is your name, where are you from, and what do you do, and all that. That's no problem. But with no intention to draw undue attention to yourself, with no intention of falsely glorifying yourself, with no motive of making yourself feel superior. So it's an internal thing. As long as you don't have this kind of motive when you're introducing yourself, there's nothing wrong in simply stating your designations as a fact. And internally, you know, these are simply titles I carry. These are simply the roles that I'm playing, but I'm not any of that. Internally, you know. But externally, for functionality, you can use those titles, knowing that you are actually not those. And you are doing it with a proper mood, proper motive, intention. Abhijit, Hare Krishna. Sharada Mataji saying, isn't it the mind keep on giving instructions saying you are so and so? Is it false ego talking through the mind? Yeah, it's actually false ego. Mind is simply the order carrier of false ego. False ego is like this mafia leader. You know, he just gives out these big instructions. And then the chota mota people, that's intelligence, mind, underneath false ego. Of course, they're also strong, but they are relatively smaller compared to false ego. So now they execute those orders. Oh, false ego is saying I'm such and such. Now the mind comes up with all kinds of crazy thoughts to push and glorify and to live up to that statement released by false ego. And false ego is all about, you know, either playing the role of a hero or a victim or a villain. Either way, it's all about me. I am so great. I am this. I am that. It's this hero mentality. You know, everybody look at me, how great I am. Or victim. Oh, this happened to me. That happened to me. You know, my life is so miserable. And this is not right. And that's not right. Somebody did this to me. That happened to me. This is victim mentality. Again, this is like, look at me. Drawing attention to myself. Or it is the villain. That's the worst actually. In the negative role. Again, they're drawing attention to themselves. So whether it is hero, whether it is victim, or whether it is villain, victor, villain, victim, as long as your intention is to draw attention to yourself, it is the false ego that is rearing its head. You need to say, oh, just shut up. You know, I'm not so great. So Raseshwari Mataji is saying, awesome session, Mataji. Every moment is like a challenge to let go and be focused on our destination, Sadhya, Krishna Prema. Yes, it's definitely challenging, but we have to keep at it. It's not easy, but by Guru's mercy, by Prabhupada's mercy, by Balarama's mercy, by Nityananda Prabhu's mercy, we can make it happen. Because Maya is strong, right? Maya is Krishna's energy. Mama Maya Duratyaya, very, very difficult. So how do we overcome? Because false ego is what? Maya's part only, right? Material energy. But ultimately Maya is also under Krishna. So by surrendering to Krishna, by surrendering to a bona fide guru who is representing Krishna, Srila Prabhupada, we can overcome it. But we're all in the same boat. So let's keep inspiring each other. And like I said, it's, yeah, definitely challenging, but we have to make it happen. Slowly but surely. The thing is that at least we are becoming aware of these things. At least for me, it's been so enlightening just to understand these things. The main thing is first to become aware. The next thing is, okay, how to dissolve. But at least to become aware. Oh, was that my false ego talking there? Oh, was this my false ego wanting some attention there? Oh, was it my false ego which was, instead of pleasing Krishna, it wanted to please its own, getting that ego boost, at least becoming aware. And then the next step is, of course, getting rid of it. Saraswati Mataji saying, thank you for the very, very inspiring session. We need to adopt humility and delete false ego from our life consciously each day. Very well said. Yes, that's what we need to do. Pallavi Mataji saying, Hare Krishna ma'am, thank you very much for yet another enlightening class. You're very welcome, Mataji. Vijay Rani Mataji, thank you Mataji for a very unique session for everyone in this situation. You're welcome. Sharada Mataji, thank you Aradhana. Banu, you're welcome Mataji. Banu Mataji, thank you so much Mataji. Enlightening session to route ourselves spiritually and drop false ego. Yes. So right now my false ego must be like really feasting on all these comments. Wow, so nice. But it's all glories to Prabhupada. And the moment we say all glories to Prabhupada means all credit to Prabhupada and no credit to me. So it's all Prabhupada's mercy, Krishna's mercy. Thank you very much. But thank you for the kind words. So may we all adopt some of these principles in our own lives. Let us become more aware and try and dissolve our false ego. So it's 7:2. If you haven't already hit that like button, not to boost my false ego, but to inspire so many other people to come and watch the video. If you really feel like you got some value out of attending this session, go ahead and hit that like button, the thumbs up button. And any newcomers here, if you haven't already subscribed to Aradhana online YouTube channel, why haven't you? So I highly recommend that please go ahead and subscribe to the channel, hit that bell icon, so that way you get notifications of every live session and even the recorded sessions that we put up. You will be notified, so you don't have to miss out on any of this wonderful wisdom of Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam and so many other things. So subscribe and hit the like button and spread the word. Week after week we come up with so many different thematic sessions based on the principles of Bhagavad Gita. We send out the poster a day or two earlier. So kindly spread the word, and many of you are already doing it. I am very, very grateful for that. And so that way more people can come and benefit from it. Tomorrow the Shloka classes are happening, 9:30 a.m. batch and the 11 a.m. batch. And Women of Wisdom wow session is happening tomorrow evening at 5:30 p.m. Indian time. Okay, so I think that's it. So we will see you again next week. Please take care, be Krishna conscious, be safe, and remember to unmask your false ego and embrace your real ego. So on that note, Hare Krishna, Hare Bol. Take care. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Granth Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki Jai. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki Jai. Hari Hari Bol.